He runs a tight ship.
Gotta keep them all in order. All right, you're all set now.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We'll call to order this meeting of the Pension Committee at 9:02. We have a quorum of members, Rob Mara, Andy Morgan, Steve Ham, and Robert Mushin. We're also joined by
Stephanie Manchester is also online.
and Stephanie Manchester Wilkie as well. We're joined by two and perhaps a third member of our UBS team who will be presenting a financial performance update as our first item of business. And then we have an agenda of a number of other items as well. Gentlemen, if you would like to proceed, you're welcome to do so. If you'd like to wait for Mark, I can move to another item on the agenda.
We can, I mean, I know he's trying to call in because I was just on the phone with him.
Okay.
So we can maybe get it started. I just, would you like me to share the screen? If so, I don't have the ability at the moment.
Does everyone have in front of them their package, or would you like to have the screen, the briefing put on the screen?
I have the packet.
I have it.
I have it.
Okay.
All right.
So yeah, I'll just reference page numbers.
Great.
All right, thanks. It's good to see everyone. Hope everyone had a great 4th of July weekend, holiday. We will, as usual, start with kind of a state of the world economy market overview. Stop us if there's any questions. But I'll start, actually skip to page 7. It's sometimes, you know, a certain type of page tells the story better than a bunch of words. And here what we can see is different colors and numbers. But what we're illustrating here is really what the markets, both bonds and stocks, have done over different time periods. And if you focus all the way to the right-hand side, that is last year. Now we're already halfway through this year. Why am I talking about last year? Well, last year was extraordinary for many reasons, but the stock markets were broadly positive at the end of last year, but it was not an even participation. There were 5 very large tech stocks that averaged 65% return. That really brought the growth side of the equation up, and value was barely positive, just a little over 2%. Now this year, which is represented in the middle column, well, there's 2 middle columns, but year to date, 2021, that has somewhat reversed itself. And now you're seeing value is leading the way. They're both positive, but value is up 18%, growth is up 6%. And bonds are struggling a little bit. I mean, depending on what bonds you're in, just because interest rates, you know, did go up and they're at a very low level. So the takeaway here is this, in our opinion, is healthy. It's good. We don't want just 5 big stocks to be where everyone needs to make the money. So this is what you call a broadening of a stock market. And we think that's actually a good sign for a recovery to continue and for a bull market to continue. There's a lot of uncertainty, and we'll talk about inflation and things like that. But, you know, long term, these are all positive signs that the market is actually functioning in a more normal way.
Yeah, and so, you know, to kind of summarize those comments, whatever really struggled last year has generally done well this year. And so there's no bigger case in point to that. If you look down, you'll see a category called MLPs, which are master limited partnerships, which are energy companies. Energy really struggled when the economy went from growth to almost overnight being shut down. And we saw energy prices plummet, and we all enjoyed very low energy prices at the pumps. This year, it's been a reverse. You know, we've seen energy stocks lead the way, which is what you would expect coming out of a recession as an economy improves. generally the more economically sensitive or cyclical areas of the market tend to take the leadership, and that's what we've seen year to date. But you could see through the MLPs that, last year's laggards really have become this year's winners. And so, generally speaking, we do have a value tilt in the portfolio, which we'll get into in a moment. But, the market is reacting the way we would expect it to with an improving economy.
Guess he agreed.
Marcus, I see your number. Can you hear us? Can we hear you?
Can you hear me now,
Yes.
Yes.
David?
Yep.
Okay, good. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
So on the next page, page 8, is just another visual of what we were just talking about, and it's relevant to the portfolio. Ashley mentioned that we have a value overweight. We actually put that on at the last meeting. We recommended a rebalance to shift into more value. That worked out. All the way to the right, what this is basically saying is that, at the beginning of the year, there was this huge difference in basically where the outperformance of growth versus value. And you can see that changed dramatically. Now it's more even. We still think value will probably outperform for the rest of the year or going forward, but you can just see how quickly things can change, and which is why you kind of want to diversify. You want to have both growth and value and make some shifts, but never really kind of make an all-in bet. So 2 pages forward, page 10 is we're talking now, we can shift to the job market. And this topic touches a lot of different areas. It obviously touches, the markets and the economy, but really I think we're all kind of seeing what's happening with problems with businesses trying to hire back employees. We're hearing things about wage inflation, and in order to get people to come back, you have to pay them more. So it's a big kind of question mark how this plays out as the economy normalizes. This chart here, just as a reference, it's showing how long did it take to get back to the pre-crisis level. The red line that's really long and drawn out, that's the financial crisis. The gray line is where we are today, where there's that steep drop and then that recovery. And the big question is, what does this trajectory look like? This past Friday's unemployment report had a tick up in unemployment rate, but that was because more people are starting to enter the workforce as unemployment benefits roll off and expire and things like that. So it's still a big question mark. Mark or Ashley, if you want to add anything to what you're seeing on that.
Mark will have to unmute himself. There was some background noise happening and I muted him.
Yeah, okay.
What I would say about this is obviously the unemployment situation has improved quite a bit here, and we're still early on. But the expectation is that we'll continue to see some improvement. One of the things that I know David will get on in a few minutes is there are some concerns regarding people that just not returning to the workforce for a variety of reasons, and there's been a lot of reasons given, such as a lot of these benefits that people have been receiving or stopping people from wanting to go to work because they can make more not working. And so it'll be interesting to see how this dynamic changes as we go throughout the next few quarters as the stimulus payments dissipate. But bottom line, I think, is that there's a definite improvement here, and the rebound that we're seeing is much quicker than what we saw during the credit crisis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the last pages is page 11, and that's talking about stimulus. So, it's obvious without the stimulus, that multiple rounds of it, different versions, stimulus that's going to come in the form of infrastructure, however you want to look at it. I mean, it's definitely had a positive effect. On the left-hand side is retail sales, which during the pandemic was focused online, and now it's starting to shift to services as businesses open up, and we can go to restaurants, et cetera. And on the right-hand side is both non-manufacturing and manufacturing. Basically, when it's above 50, that represents an expansion and we're at levels not seen in several decades. So
Mm.
these are not bad things. The question is, what's the long-term price of them? And that's where you start to think of, okay, you have all the stimulus, all the spending. What does it have? What impact does it have on inflation, right? And that is, I guess, the biggest topic. That's the biggest unknown. You know, the smartest economists in the world have different opinions on whether or not this inflation that everyone's seeing is temporary based off of, you know, supply chain issues, not being able to get, you know, semiconductors or chips for cars, or if it's here to stay for a longer period of time. And that is probably going to be the biggest factor as to what the markets, both bonds and stocks, do going forward. But in our opinion, we won't really have a real good idea until probably the fourth quarter of this year.
Carol, is Mark, is he unmuted? Does he have the ability to unmute himself?
He can unmute himself.
Okay.
Mark,
Star 6 or star 9. I haven't got my sheet notes in front of me, but it's one of those two options.
Okay,
One raises your hand and the other one unmutes you.
great, thank you.
there he goes.
There we
Okay,
go.
I think I'm unmuted now, right? Okay, sorry
You
about
are.
that. So,
There's
I'll
a
just-
tick that
okay,
keeps
thank you.
happening.
okay. Is there a clicking sound, Ashley, still, or?
Yes, yes.
How about I sit quiet? David, why don't you try to run through the inflation then that I would normally go through? Is a clicking sound annoying, or?
Look, it's probably your pacemaker. You have to turn it off.
I'm going to the doctor now. How'd you know that? Anyway, I'll try to go through it. If it's too annoying, David, if you or Ashley, just jump in. But one of the things that we're seeing with inflation, while we think a lot of it is transitory, it's unusual what's happening with inflation. We're seeing three types of inflation right now in the economy. One is the unemployment wage inflation. We know that the current administration wanted a minimum wage, and I don't think they have to legislate it in. With the unemployment insurance that's being paid, people are not going back to work. I don't know what it's like in Little Compton, but every other place we're traveling, we're seeing help wanted signs all over the place. People are not going back to work. They're waiting for unemployment to go away. In the meantime, employers are having to raise rates. We know that hamburger flippers at the Jersey Shore, high school kids are being paid $20 an hour to flip hamburgers. That's what it's costing to get them back to come to work. We know that technical people have wage inflation, and that wage inflation is not going to go away. So that's going to be part of inflation that will be with us. The other is consumer headline inflation. We know that plywood doubled in price in the past year. It's now backed off about 40%. That's supposedly because there's so much demand, but we're not sure that supply chains are going to be better off. I know that you do construction on Little Compton. PVC is up 300% from last year, and that's not because there's a shortage of manufacturing capability. It's because there's a shortage of resin. And we learned this at another one of our board meetings. The gentleman is the largest well driller in the state of Maryland, everything from military bases to factories for water wells, and he can't get PVC. And he told us at the meeting that's because the Chinese in the past 15 years have bought up 80% of the resin makers in the United States under a company called U.S. Home Resin, and they're just not supplying the resin to the manufacturers at this point. So prices on some of the commodities, food prices we know are up. We have water shortages in the West at this point. Food prices are up, and that's partly supply chain and lack of truckers. That probably will continue through the end of this year. The part where we don't have normal inflation is monetary inflation, where the central banks have pumped so much money into the system and are continuing to pump it in that interest rates aren't moving up. As a matter of fact, I'll send an article out today that most banks and most money markets are not buying commercial paper in the money markets. They're putting the money in the repo system at the Fed, because the Fed is paying 0.05% on short paper, which is higher than treasuries are currently paying, or commercial paper. So there's tons of money in the system from the monetary policy, and we're probably going to get an infrastructure deal, which will even put more in. So we're not getting the normal. We have wage push inflation, we have commodity inflation, but we don't have monetary inflation. So we'll probably have low interest rates into 2022 at this point, barring some shock to the system. Any questions on that? Or okay, David?
Sure. All right. I think the last page 16, this is, UBS is a view of the different scenarios and going through the end of this year. So we had a very strong first half of the year. Under the central and upside scenario, we can still see some more upside, anywhere from, well, if I take into account where the markets are today rather than a month ago, call it anywhere from 2 to 7% upside on U.S. stock. And really, I mean, not much we don't expect much to happen from the fixed income market. I think that on the Treasury side, we're looking at 10-year yields around 1.5. I mean, it's possible by the year end, especially if there's more inflation, that we see closer to 2%. But ultimately, it's really a lot depends on the Fed. A lot depends on the language that the Fed puts out there, as well as what Mark was talking about and how it plays out. So you'll see when we get into the portfolio, we're going to recommend a modest rebalance just to take some of the profits off the table. Had a very strong run into the end of your fiscal year, but we think the rest of the year will probably be pretty modest with some volatility along the way. Any questions? Okay. Ashley, do you want to kick us off on the portfolio, page 20? Or I would probably high level start.
Sure. Yeah. So if everybody turns to page 20, what you'll see is two pie charts. What you'll see is as of the end of May, so fairly recent, the asset allocation was about 71% equities and 29, little under 29% fixed income, which is above the target. We have a target, and we've let this run, of 65% equities and 35% fixed income. So I think that's partly some of the decisions we had conversations on in past meetings, partly because markets on the equity side have been so strong, but clearly, we have deviated a little bit above our targets on the equity side. The value of the portfolio as of the end of May was a little bit under 14 million. Just took a little look today. It's currently a little bit over 14 million now, given that the June numbers were pretty strong. So, bottom line is that, you do have an equity overweight, and the portfolios have gone up nicely over the last year or so. And if you turn on the next page, actually, let's turn to page 23. This is kind of gives you, a good view of all the, investment managers, the allocations and performance over time. But you'll see that, on the large cap side, you have about 36% in large cap managers, which are the three managers noted there. On the small cap side, you have the two managers, and on the international side, you have the three managers there. So the small cap exposure is about 16.7%. The international equity exposure is about a little under 16%. We do have the REIT exposure through the Cohen and Steers real estate fund. That's about 2.7%. And then on the fixed income side, we have three active managers, and they total together a little under 29% of the portfolio. I don't know, David, if you want to talk a little bit about manager performance. For the quarter, it generally was fairly positive relative to all the asset classes.
Yeah. So, right. So at the top, really what we saw last quarter, we took money away from growth and put it into value. And you can see that, value is up 13.5%. I'm looking at the MFS value of the last 3 months, and growth, was up 7. So that was good, rotational move. Some some of our higher quality managers added value in the quarter. Kate Anderson being one of them, First Eagle. And, you know, on the bond side, really, I mean, I think that overall we're pleased with the bonds considering all things considered. However, we have a preference right now for shorter term bonds. We'll talk about that. But the bottom line, if you go to page 24, we can talk about performance. Now, you know, last 3 months, up 6.4 versus 5.5. The fiscal year to date, this is short a month, so 24.64. We do have an estimated actual fiscal year going June to June, and that's just over 25. So an additional month added a little bit, so 25.10 is the estimate using a different reporting system. So again, extraordinarily good fiscal year. Now the recommendation, we do have a recommendation that based off of what Ashley talked about. So if the current amount of stock is 71%, now it's actually a little bit higher. You know, we think long term, that's how the portfolio, that's how you're going to get to your actual rate, not the fixed income. But we do want to kind of modestly, you know, check in, take some profits. There's going to be volatility along the way. So we're recommending a 3% rebalance from stocks to fixed income. So if I look at that today, that'll probably bring us down to 68 from 71. So you still have a little bit of overweight to our target of fixed income. We think that's appropriate. And we would take it from 2 places, 1% or 140,000 in dollar terms from the very top manager, MFS Value. Really what we're doing is taking some of those profits. We did a good job of moving money in. It did well. We still think that it'll do well, but maybe if you think back to that chart in the beginning where there's the growth value disparity, it's not as wide as it used to be. So let's take some profits. So 140,000 from MFS Value. And then our other biggest overweight is small and mid cap, and that would be Kane Anderson. So we were going to recommend 2% or 280,000 from Kane Anderson. All of that together, which is 420,000 or 3%, would go to one bond manager on page 24. That would be BlackRock Strategic Income. That is so increasing them by 3%. That is they're the shortest term manager. So we think that if interest rates do rise, they're probably best positioned to weather the storm a little bit.
Mhm. Well, I think you're absolutely on. I think you're on target.
Okay.
Steve Ham, have you had an opportunity to consider that? If you're still on, I get no response from you, Steve.
Can you hear me or?
Here you, Mark. Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mark.
No, go on. It's okay. I just want to make sure the mute worked.
Yeah. Any other member of the committee want to comment on the proposal to move 3%?
Well, it's Rob here. I think it's sensible.
Yeah.
We have lots of profit, and it's probably wise to take some off the table for now.
Okay.
Isn't Kane Anderson, aren't they one of the best performing one of the highest performers?
We really
small
depends.
cap?
Yeah, it depends on which way, where you look at it, right? Of the small caps, since we've started, yes, they outperform the index, but they also have more than double or almost double the amount of the index. So we just kind of want to pare that back to have a little bit more of a balanced approach.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, and we'll do this from time to time when we have, big winners in the portfolio. And we still like Kane Anderson. It's not a reflection on anything that they're doing. It's more based on their the allocation relative to what our targets are. And so one of the ways we manage risk is to periodically rebalance back.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Rob, would you make a motion to adopt the recommendation?
I'll make a motion to adopt the recommendations from UBS to
I'll second.
rebalance the portfolio.
The motion then is made by Mara, seconded by Morgan to adopt the UBS recommendations that's been outlined. Is there any discussion? I'll ask for a roll call vote. Mara,
Yay.
Morgan,
Aye.
Watt,
Yes.
Manchester Wilkie,
Aye.
Ham,
Aye.
Motion aye. Thank you. Anything more, gentlemen, from UBS?
No,
Yeah.
I would just, summarize. I think, generally we have measured optimism for the rest of the year. We do still think the economy will continue to improve. The vaccine, so long as it continues to get rolled out and these variants we're seeing elsewhere, if it's effective against those variants, then we do expect the economy to continue to improve. So it's not going to be a straight line. We know that the market is going to be very focused on the inflation numbers, particularly the ones that come out in the fall, because the expectation and the hope is that we start to see inflation tail off. So, depending on what those numbers suggest, that's going to, have investors rethink, what the timing of the Fed interest rate hikes are going to be. And so, barring something unforeseen, we do think that the markets we expect them to be higher between now and year end. That's the base case at least. But we also recognize that if you go back, and this is an interesting statistic, if you go back to 1996 and look at every single calendar year since that point, every single calendar year has seen an intra-year decline in the S&P of at least 7% other than 2017. So 2017 was the only calendar year in that 20-year plus time frame where we didn't see at least a 7% peak to trough decline in the market. So we think that volatility is the norm, and it wouldn't surprise us to see volatility pick up at some point over the next few months. But at the end of the day, we do still think the economy will improve. And so I think having the exposure to equities, particularly as we see inflation, we think that's the place to be, so long as it's contained.
Yep.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you. With that, are we ready to move on to the second item? Is there any more from a reporting standpoint? I would appreciate our UBS teammates to remain with us just as I announce the second item, just for your information. All right. The cost of living adjustments have been in fact implemented this year in an effort to try to avoid what had happened in a few prior years. We accelerated the timing of notification of Matrix as to the value that the value of each person's cost of living adjustment in a more timely fashion. Those were received on the 3rd of June, and acknowledgement was that they would be then made part of the July payments thereafter. The pre-alertment that comes to the beneficiaries caused one of them to write to me saying, once again, my COLA has not been introduced into my July payment. I notified Matrix, who then took some rather rapid action, and were able, at the point when the COLAs were due, the person got a check for the amount that was their previous amount and an additional check that made up the COLA difference. Many apologies were rendered with respect to the fact that that was not done in a timely fashion once again, but I'm not convinced that the internal process, I don't have confidence that that this will happen next year without my backing it up even further, just to be sure. The second thing that happened as a part of this discussion was I was advised that one of our pensioners received, for at least a portion of the past fiscal year, an amount which is identical to the amount that a different pensioner was to receive. And why that happened is unknown. In other words, a person received nearly twice the amount due them for a period of months, which was only uncovered when I raised the question regarding COLAs. So I haven't gotten to the bottom of how this other problem occurred. I now have, of course, a person who's received a windfall for a number of months. I don't know yet the exact number, but that windfall I need to take back from her. And the other thing I don't know is if the other individual was shorted, and that's where the money needs to go or whatever. All of that to say that I don't have at the moment a comfortable feeling that we're on top of the details of our rather small portfolio's payments at Matrix. So I just want to put that on the table for the committee's use and also for UBS's consideration. I will gather more details and give you more as I get it, but I'm concerned that a person, all the people would fail to get a commitment that we've made to them that we're going to give them each July 1st, and one that I think we had properly worked out the details for. And the second is that someone could receive the pension value owed to a different person. I just, it's difficult for me to understand how that would be, since this person has been retired for a number of years and suddenly got this very large increase.
Hey, Bob, did they give you any type of explanation for how something like this could happen?
The former, the failure to implement COLAs was acknowledged by the person that I deal with at UBS, Paul Barnett, who said it was, I failed to, it's my fault, and I will make good on it. As to the method by which the swap occurred, interestingly, what I asked for from them was, is there a way, and it used to be when we were in more of a paper format, that I would get this rather voluminous report each month that would show, among other things, a section of it would show the check, the value sent to each individual. And so what I asked is, is there a place I could look for that? So for instance, I could, as a second check on the system, look in late June to see if all of our pensioners had been sent indications of intended receipt of the COLA amount. Mm-hmm. Since I don't know where to look for that, I asked if I could have it. And what I got in return was a huge Excel spreadsheet with, literally hundreds of columns, which, isn't, I mean, I could go through and delete everything I'm trying to, but what I was looking for was a report. So again, this is sort of in real time. I'm saying, I'm going to be going back to Paul saying, no, that's not what I'm looking for. I need something that I can quickly look at and say, there's our 38 pensioners and here's the value they're going to get next month. Good. We're all set then.
Right. No, absolutely, Bob. And that's, it should be in a user-friendly format. You shouldn't have to hunt for everything.
So Bob, when you schedule the next call with Paul, if you can have me on the phone or one of us on the phone so we hear what's going on.
Thank you.
Because this is supposed to be automated. It's not supposed to be manual, and it shouldn't have, even the COLA should have been there. So if you can have me on the phone, or we'll get somebody on the phone with you so we can hear what's being said and we can resolve this very quickly. Okay?
I'd appreciate that very much. I'll do that.
Okay.
Any other questions on that issue? Okay. Gentlemen from UBS, you are welcome to remain. I do not believe we will need to have additional conversation, and I appreciate very much your work to put this together and for your for your recommendation, which, as you saw, was unanimously concurred in. So thank you.
I appreciate it. And we thank the market for being at our backs for the past 2 years. So it's been great.
Yeah, good. Thanks.
Thank you very much,
Excellent.
gentlemen.
Thank you. Everybody have a good rest of the summer.
Same to you.
Yeah,
You
take
too.
care, everyone.
Bob, please include me on the calls, okay?
I'm sorry.
Please include me on the call with Matrix.
With Paul.
Absolutely. Will do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thanks,
Take care,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. As you know, the actuarial study that we spoke about last time, you had given me a direction to speak with the actuaries about their ability to do this. In my negotiations over this subject, it was pointed out to me that there was a second facet to this. And so I have not yet initiated the full question, because I would like to add the consideration that's in the agenda. I would like that actuarial study not only look at how do we deal with the rather small number of people who might achieve mandatory retirement age prior to achieving the necessary threshold. At this point, it's 25 years of service to be able to retire from a public safety position. That part I have direction from you regarding. The second part I would like to include, and again, both of these are asking the actuary not to do something, but to tell us what they would do and how much it would cost so that we can tune it to the kind of answer that we're looking for. The second item I would like them to consider is an assessment of the impact of seeking an increase in employee pension contributions in exchange for an increase in pension benefit. At least one of our unions has asked, would it be possible for us to receive a greater pension benefit in exchange for greater pension contributions? Now, this subject did come up in our last month's discussion to the extent that some members of the committee who are not members of the union said, why not have what in essence is a blended plan? That is a plan that is both defined benefit and
Cash contribution.
contribution based. So I leave that on the table with the actuary as well, but I would like them to tell us what they would charge and what effect we might get from something that, say, takes our current pension benefit from a 50% at 25 years, 60% at 30 years to something of a higher percentage. Now, I'm acknowledging, based on what went on before my time, when there was such an effort initiated in which it became, in essence, impossible to provide that to everyone simultaneously, both those with 2 or 3 years of service and those with 20 years of service remaining. But I have agreed that I would seek such a thing. And so I'd like to initiate that process by talking with the actuary to see what they might suggest and what kind of cost would be involved. And then I would return to you with that information. At the same time, I'm acknowledging your direction also that we consider a blended plan as an offer if that turns out to be something that is more affordable and perhaps more beneficial to the members.
Is that blended plan? Is that along the lines of the contribution with the 457?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Rob?
Yeah.
I just said yes.
Okay. Yeah. The thought would
Benefit
be.
there basically is tax and control.
Right.
Who has control over the investments and the tax advantage that the person receives by using pre-tax money rather than post-tax money.
Right.
Wouldn't that be a different instead of a 457, wouldn't that be like a 403 or something like that? I don't know. I'm still, when I got my 457, they said that the town could not contribute to that.
I don't know if that's true or not.
That was what we were told was
Yeah.
the 457 is the part of the tax code
Yeah,
that is. And I know like my wife has a 403B from the
Right.
hospital. There's all different ones, but I didn't know that the town could contribute to a 457 plan.
I know you can make contributions through 403, but 457 was the shadow plan for 403 for government employees, basically.
Yes,
So,
but the town did not contribute to the 457. With a 403B, I believe the
right.
employer contributes a certain percentage as well as.
Yeah, they don't have to, but they usually do. They match it.
Right.
But
Right.
I don't, it doesn't seem logical that one plan would be that radically different than the other. But that's a question that we need to ask.
Yeah.
Right, because if that's enough, I know from speaking to other people, that would definitely be a huge interest if there's any kind of matching program that they can jump into,
Right.
it would,
Right.
it would definitely be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
To think of it another way, the town is already, in order to assure, in fact, one of this committee's important purposes for existence is to ensure that our pension plan remains solvent and that contributions by the town are made so as to make that so. To your point, Andrew, this is another way in which the town would contribute to keep participation in either 403 or 457, whichever is the right reference, by the individuals that are in it. And there would be a contractual, I would say, obligation that says this is what we will do. So that the individual could count on that extra contribution being made.
Right.
All right, then I would seek a motion to give me the authority to add this item to the discussion with the actuary.
I'll make a motion,
I'll second.
include the item.
Okay. And is there any further discussion? I'll ask for a roll call vote. Mara,
Yay.
Watt,
Yay.
Morgan,
Yay.
Manchester Wilkie.
Aye.
Ham,
Yay.
and Mush and I. Thank you. My next item is to update you on pending retirements. There are 3 people who have completed their paperwork and it's on its way to making them into retired benefits. That is Sheila Oliveira in the town clerk's office, Chris Osborne at the school, and Chris Condon in the fire department. The one remaining retirement for which the paperwork has not yet been returned is Deborah Gay. So those 4 people by our next meeting should be fully into a retirement status. The next item of business is to approve the payment of the actuary's invoice for the $900 for the 3 benefit calculations, which are 3 of those 4 people.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mara, seconded by Morgan. Any discussion? A roll call vote on that then. Mara,
Yay.
Watt,
Yay.
Morgan,
Yay.
Manchester Wilkie,
Aye.
Ham,
Yay.
Mush and I. Thank you. The next and last item of a vote is to approve the minutes of the June 7th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve them.
I'll
I'll
second it.
Motion made by Watt, second by Manchester Wilkie. Further discussion. A roll call vote on that then. Mara,
Yay.
Watt,
Yay.
Morgan,
Yay.
Manchester Wilkie.
Aye.
Ham.
Aye.
Mushin, aye. Thank you. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, the 2nd of August at 9 a.m.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Have
Thank
a
you very
nice
much.
one.
Have a good day, gentlemen.
I
Take
declare
care.
the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Take care.